All right, we're back with number 3. So here's 3. It's got a little bit more information than the others. It tells me that it has a 0 of 8i. So if I'm trying to solve, I already know one of the zeros. If you graph the function, so if I use Desmos and I graph this equation, minus 58x squared minus 64x minus 384. I can see some solutions here. These are not going to be they're probably not going to be in the form that the state has you looking at the solutions, but most of the time these questions are multiple choice. So if I'm going to actually solve this one, I just want the solutions. I know I have the solutions x equals negative 7.043 and x equals 8.885. I also have a 0 that's x equals 8i. We are still missing a 0 because I have x to the 4th as my power. So here, you need to also realize that the other 0 is something called the complex conjugate of the first imaginary. So 8i was our imaginary number, our 0. So the another 0 will also be the negative of that, so negative 8i. So these are my 4 solutions, and I did use Desmos to kind of cheat to get negative 7.043 and 8.885. If you divide, because you can divide by 8i and negative 8i, you will get down to a quadratic with a b value that you can use a quadratic formula to solve. But when we do these problems, they're most of the time multiple choice, and you can look at the answer choices and figure out which decimals match, which you're going to see on the next paper. So I'm not going to have you factor this just for time purposes. It's not pertinent. It's just interesting for you to know. So you can find the first 2 with Desmos, and then the last 2, one is given to you and the other one you should be able to pick out just because it is the complex conjugate and they have to have both zeros. So imaginary zeros come in pairs. So these are my solutions. For time purposes, we are not going to factor. So then if I go up to number 4, that's all we're going to do for number 3. For number 4, I have a given 0. This one looks a little bit different than the last one. So this one is 4 minus I. This is still a complex 0. The other 0, though, is going to be 4 plus I. So I already have 2 answers here. I get one that was given and then one that I can find from the given, because all you're doing is taking what's called the complex conjugate. So these are 2 zeros. They are imaginary numbers. They're not something you can see on the graph. But if you graph the equation, we could find the other 2 zeros. If we couldn't, then we'd have to do a little more manipulation. But we'll graph it to see what happens. So I have negative 3x to the 4th minus 8x cubed plus 38x squared minus 136x plus 221. All right, so here are my 2 solutions, even though they are ugly. So I also have these 2 answers. So those are my 4 solutions, even though I have 2 that are imaginary. When you get to pre-calculus, you will have to use your imaginary zeros to find the real zeros, not rounded decimals, but to the exact value. But you do not have to do that yet. That's the end of number 4. So we're not going to write it factored either. So We've done 1, 2, 3, and 4 on this paper. For the next video, you are going to move on to the released items. North Carolina Math 3 released items.